Hey everyone, it's Sharon coming at you from Beach Therapy Counseling Services. Happy Friday to you all. I hope that your week was amazing and I hope you guys have an awesome weekend here coming up. So, today's topic I want to talk about is self care. I believe this is going to be my third time talking about self care, but I never alluded to the fact that it was going to be a small topic. If anything, I've always said that I want to do lots of videos talking about self care. When they come to me and when different ideas come to me, I want to share them because I do feel like this is such a universal, important thing that we all need to be implementing into our life and not just using this word as a flashy, trendy word like self care. I mean, I hear that often too, but it's one of my videos was talking about different ways to implement self care, and another one was really giving your self care a purpose so that way it serves its purpose in your life. And both of those videos, go back and look for those. But today's is going to be thinking outside of the box with your self care. And I'm going to share a personal story on my self care and then ways that I've helped clients think outside of the box because of my story. So, my story with self care is it was always vacations have been beautiful self care for me, but unless you're a billionaire, I mean, I can't go on vacations every day or every other day, or, it's like a once to twice a year thing. So, that's a beautiful thing, but you need something to implement more often. And so then I was always reading and going to the gym and meditating. Going to the gym is still an awesome self care for me, but it is redundant in the way of it doesn't change. Like it's always the same gym, always the same equipment, always, things generally don't change a huge deal. Meditating is awesome because it really helps me um, get introspective and also helps me get outside of my head. It does both of those things. So those are awesome ways as well. But with books, because I became so busy with both my private practice and other work that I do, as well as being a mom, books really got tossed to the side. And it was such a vital part of my self care. And the reason it was so vital is because it took me outside of myself. And you got a different story each day, depending on what you were reading. And I loved that. I loved thinking outside of myself and thinking outside of the box and being able to delve into somebody else's story. So I was really missing that piece. And almost, it was like meant to be. I had a friend within like the month or so that I started getting like anxious about not reading, but not really having time to read. I had a friend at the gym come up to me, and I don't remember how the conversation started, but somehow we got into the fact that she had started this new podcast and she was loving it. So I, that day, put the podcast on, downloaded the podcast, and loved it. And that kind of evolved. And over time, we've become a little group at the gym where we talk about our podcasts inside the gym when we see each other and outside of the gym via text and sometimes phone calls. And it's been super therapeutic for me for self care. And I haven't actually talked to the ladies about this being self care, but I'm sure that they would all agree to some level that this has really been a fun experience for all of us. And it's because it does the same thing for me. It feeds the same spot inside of me that the books fed. And that was just taking me outside of myself and letting me hear different stories. We do true crime podcasts, but I'm sure they all kind of work the same because you're taking yourself outside of your own head and allowing yourself to hear someone else's story and to get into it. So we kind of delve into it and we psychoanalyze it and we tear these people apart sometimes, and sometimes it's just really a lot of fun. So I started thinking, because I have clients sometimes talk to me about their self care regimens just not working anymore. They feel stuck. And it's the same idea that I was stuck because I wanted the same thing I got from books, but I didn't have the time to actually listen to books or read books. Where now is I can listen to the podcast while I'm working out, so I'm actually hitting two birds with one stone and like double self-caring it every time I go to the gym. And so I started thinking, and that level, that took me to really thinking outside of the box for some of my clients. And I've seen amazing transformations within the last few months just with myself helping them to think outside of the box. Because prior to that, because I had my own regimen, I hadn't really thought outside of the box. And so now I have one client who started her own like knitting group, which is beautiful. I mean, I don't knit, but she is finding so much joy and pleasure in that. And really enjoys it as her self-care because she was knitting alone for so long and used it as her self-care, but then she stopped being able to use it as her self-care because she wasn't getting anything doing it solo. And then I have another client who just started exploring new hobbies. We decided that's what he needed to do in order to explore self-care options. And he does the whole indoor skydiving thing now as part of his self-care because he's an adrenaline guy. Um, but that also keeps him within the United States, where before he was traveling to do his adrenaline, but now, he wants to settle down and be somewhere, and he's able to find his self-care right here in Colorado. Obviously skiing, but that was getting boring for him, so now he's doing the whole skydiving thing, indoor skydiving. But I have another example of that as well. I have another client who started her own book club because I started talking to her about how I changed from books to podcasts, and she said she doesn't like the podcasting, and I get it. It's not for everyone. But she wanted to make it a more social thing to kind of feed some of her own self-care because she wasn't getting out. She's a mom. She wears all the hats that us moms sometimes wear, and she wasn't finding her self-care in the form of being able to meet with other ladies. So they started a book club, and she is thriving in this. She hosts it once every other week. And I've gotten permission from all these people to talk about this, although I won't use names. But I think this is a beautiful thing to start with your self-care regimen. So for those of us who don't know what it's going to take to really hit the right button, just think outside the box. Start exploring. If one thing doesn't work, try another. Because if you don't try it, you won't know, and you won't know how much it feeds you. Because it could be the silliest thing. Like for me, it's these podcasts. It feeds me. It feeds me to a different level where I can, like I said, get outside of my own head and talk with other people that I value their opinions and just be part of something that I didn't even realize I would give two hoots about being a part of prior to starting it. So self-care can be so many different things, but the most important thing is thinking outside of the box and starting to understand what it is that's going to feed you so that way you can partake in your own self-care regimen. And then when it doesn't work anymore, find something else because there are so many different ideas. Like I said, this skydiving idea, I would have never, had I not partook in this podcasting group, even thought outside of my own box. So even as a counselor, sometimes we need to think outside of the box, and I think it's a beautiful thing. So my encouragement for today is get started on self-care. Even if you don't know what that is, come up with some crazy ideas and just start trying them. And you don't know exactly which one it is that's going to feed you and in what way. So I hope you guys get something out of this video because if anything, I just want to encourage us to really find that piece that's going to fit that spot in your life because it is so important. We pour so much out into our jobs, into our family, into our, you name it. You name the hat that you wear, you pour a lot of yourself into that. So you need to be able to feed yourself in order to fuel yourself to be the best person you can be for those different roles that you play. And self-care is going to be a huge part of that. So I hope this encourages everybody, and I hope you guys, again, just have an awesome weekend.